Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 75 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. I hope that you are sitting down today with some family and or friends and having an amazing Thanksgiving. I was out with some of my family in Arizona this past week, and we did a Thanksgiving. It was great to have all of the family around, tell stories, and just have a great time. And on Thanksgiving, I will be with my girlfriend, and I'll be meeting some of her family. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope that all of you out there are able to do something that makes you happy as well. One of the things that I'm really thankful for is that you are listening to this podcast, and judging by the numbers, you're continuing to share it with other people. Thank you so much for that. Today's thought leader is Wally Carmichael. Some of you may be familiar with him already. He's the host of the Men of Abundance podcast. And once I found out a little bit of his backstory, I thought he would be great to have on the show. Wally Carmichael is a husband, father, retired Army medic, Department of the Army operations specialist, and podcast host of the Men of Abundance podcast. He was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and joined the Army at the age of 20 for the education benefits, opportunity to travel, and to escape what was clearly a destructive lifestyle. It only took 24 years to complete his bachelor's degree in business management, and he was able to travel to 23 countries on 5 continents. Wally has lived in Panama, Germany, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, and currently lives on the beach in Hawaii. Wally first started in the job force in a slaughterhouse at the tender age of 16, no pun intended. He has also started and operated many business ventures from real estate, sales, and installation of satellite systems, residential cleaning, and internet marketing. Next to family, his greatest passion is hosting his Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, where he has conversations with other abundant leaders, as well as up-and-coming entrepreneurs, authors, and thought leaders doing amazing things in their community. This is a really good episode. Wally has some great information for you, and I think that you're going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and jump right into the interview. Wally, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to connect. You are a fellow podcaster for the people out there who don't know. Wally Carmichael, he runs the Men of Abundance podcast, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I really think that with your background, that you have a lot to offer the listeners of my podcast, so I wanted to have you on for one of the thought leaders. I'm very happy that I was able to add the Thought Leader Thursday to my episodes, because I think that there's a lot that the veterans can gain by talking to other people like you that are killing it in your industry. And I think that you've got a lot of great advice that you can hand down.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've been listening to your podcast for quite a while, Veterans Resources, and it's the most shared podcast that I personally share.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Wally, let's start out with a little bit of your background. Let's kind of get into, now you were military yourself, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So, take us back to that time and tell us about that.
Well, I don't know how far back you want to go, but I'll tell you, I joined the Army. I was in the Army for 25 years. I was an Army medic. Started out as a 91 Alpha, which is what an Army medic was when I first came on board. And then it changed to 91 Bravo, and I retired as a 68 Whiskey. I had amazing opportunities. I originally, everybody says, we joined for patriotic reasons. And of course, the patriotism certainly comes as being a part of such an amazing team of any of the branches. But originally I joined the military, quite frankly, because I wanted to get out of the lifestyle situation that I was in, which wasn't leading to a very good place. And in addition to that, I had dropped out of college because I had ran out of money, quite frankly. I had a scholarship that I decided I didn't want to take right out of high school for track. Ended up going to the same college anyway and paying for it. But like I said, I ran out of money. And then my uncle, who was a first sergeant at the time, was home on leave and said, hey, look, join the military. You're going to get the education eventually and you'll get some experience. And I was like, not no, but hell no, it ain't happening. And, after working 2 jobs and just seeing it go nowhere, I was trying to get more money to get back in school. I walked into the recruiter and told them what I wanted to do. And they said, well, you got infantry, scout, so on and so forth. I was like, no, thanks. By the time I got home, I had a message. My mom said some sergeant so-and-so called. And so I called him and said, hey, 3 slots just opened up.
Wow.
So I was like, imagine that. So anyhow, 25 years of service, traveled the world, did a lot of amazing things, met a lot of amazing people. And, there's multiple stories in between there, but we don't have that kind of time right now.
Yeah. So what about specifically your transition out of the military? What was that like for you?
A lot of people, they talk about how hard it is to transition out of the military. I was a little bit different in that I worked at Tripler Army Medical Center. I was there for 3 years. Then I was PCS'd over to Fort Hood, that's where I went downrange from. And then I ended up, while I was downrange, I said, look, I called up my branch manager, same person I'd talked to for many, many years. And she told me, you've got like 10 options. And nobody ever gets that many options. I had like 10 options, the great options: Colorado, Alaska, even a couple back home in Phoenix, or in Arizona, where I grew up in Phoenix. And then she said Hawaii. I was like, really? I just came to Fort Hood from Hawaii, because I told her, I have to get out of Fort Hood when I get back, and because we just didn't care for it. And so I came back over to Hawaii. We had been here for about 3 years, and I told my wife, I was like, we're at 21, 22 years, and if I don't get picked up for Master Sergeant this year, we're done. So I got picked up for Master Sergeant, and I did my 3 years. I did another 3 years, and when I transitioned, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, quite frankly, because I figured that, knowing everybody that I knew, the connections that I had, that I was a shoe-in to get a job right away. And we had decided at the time we were either going to stay in Hawaii if we got a job, otherwise we were going to relocate back to the mainland, back to San Antonio or Florida. And ironically enough, the day that we decided we were going to go to San Antonio, to Texas, and I shipped my vehicle. We already had our hold baggage picked up, unaccompanied baggage picked up. And the day my truck arrived in Dallas, I get a call from one of the many jobs that I had put in for on USA Jobs, because I decided I wanted to stay in a GS position. And it was for one of the jobs I did on active duty as an equal opportunity advisor for the Pacific region, for the medical command. And I get this call and they say, hey, we want to know if you still want this job over here. We're considering you for this job. And I said, please tell me you're in San Antonio. They said, no, we're over here at Pearl Harbor, Navy, Hawaii. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I had to have my truck sent back. We decided to take the job because it was 3 days a week, perfect for me. Because by this point I had already been out of service for almost 4 months, with the leave and all that stuff.
Right. So
I took the job. I worked there for about 5 months, and then one of the guys that I trained that actually took my job on active duty over at Tripler called me and said, hey, you want to come take one of the 2 or 3, one of the 10 jobs that you did while you were on active duty? And I was like, heck yeah, let me come back home. So I went back to Tripler, and that's where I'm at now. I'm a GS civilian working at Tripler as an operations specialist. And I'm literally sitting in the same office I was at that I worked in for 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, so the transition hasn't been too bad, although I will say that, and we'll get more into this, the transition wasn't as smooth as I thought it was going to be as far as getting a job. Pretty humbling experience.
Well, I think a lot of people also, you being a medic, as I understand it, depending on when you got out, that didn't transfer very easily over to the civilian side.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of people would think that a medic would transfer over. Now, senior medics, obviously, you're going to generally find jobs as health system specialists or operations specialists, depending on what you did. And unfortunately, I was an equal opportunity advisor too, so I had that skill set on my resume as well. But if I was to go get a job as a medic, and basically I'm getting a job as an EMT, that's $20,000-$30,000 a year, and a lot of work. I'm 48, bro. I'm not trying to go out and, work like that, man. And I need a little bit more cash than that. You know what I'm saying? My lifestyle is at a certain level, even with retirement and disability, all that stuff. It's just not going to cut it.
Yeah. Especially in the area that you're living, cost of living is a little
Correct.
bit more, huh?
Much more. Yeah. And quite frankly, I could live on my retirement. I could do, pretty well on my retirement and disability, in Texas and certain areas of the mainland and the United States, but definitely not here.
Right. Right. So let's talk about the Men of Abundance podcast. Where did the idea for this come from?
So this idea actually came from, and we talked about one of the guys we're going to talk about here in a minute as we were getting on, but originally my plan was to write a book called Living Your Life of Abundance. So where that came from is for many, many years, and I know many of your listeners may relate to this, I have an entrepreneur mindset. I've always wanted to have my own business, but ultimately I wanted to be self-employed. That's really what I wanted to do. So I've chased dream after dream. I've chased shiny thing after shiny thing. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, educating myself, getting, burned, quite frankly, on some things, which is an education in itself.
Right.
And I just realized finally, like 2 years ago, a year or two ago, that, what? I am living a life of abundance. I have a beautiful family. I have one son. He's 22. He's in Army 25 Quebec. He works with satellite systems at Fort Stewart. I have a 17-year-old who's getting ready to graduate high school. I have a 7-year-old who's just my shadow. And I just have an amazing family. I live on the beach. I literally live, the beaches. I open my door, I can hear the waves crashing in.
Oh, wow.
On the beach. I just live a beautiful, wonderful lifestyle. An amazing woman that's been with me for 25 years this December. And I thought, I said, I live a life of abundance. I truly do. And once I made that realization, so much more started coming into my life. So many connections, so many amazing people that were already there. They were always there. I just opened my eyes and stopped focusing on the shiny thing and realizing I am living a life of abundance. And so I wanted to write this book called Living Your Life of Abundance, but I didn't want it to be all about me. So as I listened to quite a few podcasts, I came across a podcast called Freedom Fastlane with Ryan Daniel Moran. And he had certain goals in life that he wanted to reach, and he had to get around certain people. The people he had to get around was people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, and many other names. Well, they weren't going to sit down with him one-on-one and mentor him for long. So what he did was he created a Thrive conference in Austin, Texas, paid them to come, and then paid people to come see them. And that's how he got people on him. So I thought, you know what? I had already started thinking about starting a podcast because I was following John Lee Dumas, and I was taking his free podcast course, How to Start Your Own Podcast. And so it all kind of came together. I was like, you know what? This is what I can do. I can start this podcast. I can bring on guests, people that I really want to learn from, that I've, authors of the books that I've read, other people, and not just people that are top influencers, but people that are trying to get their life started, trying to get their business started, and just all kinds of people. So I've talked to nonprofit organizations, and I've talked to all kinds of people. As we talked about, the Mentee. The Mentee is another
great
Jeff
podcast.
Woods. Yes, Jeff Woods. And so I started getting all of these connections. So first I talked to Rob Dial. I get Rob Dial on the phone. Rob Dial talks to me about Jay Pepazon, and they are in a organization together. So he tells me how to get in touch with Jay Pepazon, who is the author of The One Thing.
Great book. I read that through Audible about 3 weeks ago. I think I just finished it.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing book. So I had already had Jeff Woods on the show, and I don't know if you know this, but Jeff Woods is also the vice president of the One Thing team.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so he works right down the hall from Jay Papasan and Gary Keller. And a little funny fact here, if you listen to the episode, I forget what episode it is, but the episode with Jay Papasan, when I jump on the line, it wasn't Jeff Woods, it wasn't Jay, it was Jeff.
That was
so they played
great.
a little trick on me. Yeah. But anyway, so, the whole thing came about. Men of Abundance podcast came about because originally I wanted to gather more information, more stories, and get in touch with these other truly abundant leaders and abundant thinkers, and add all of that in the book. So that's basically the journey that I'm on. In addition to that, the other reason why I decided the name Men of Abundance is because I specifically wanted to work with men and create a community of men who could come together and talk about the things that, quite frankly, most men don't talk about in their personal circles. And we can get into all the reasons for that. It's the same reasons why men don't talk about PTSD and all of the other issues that we have. Their addictions to porn, their addictions to substance abuse, their addictions to, just not just addictions, but people that are doing amazing things in life. And there are so many men out there doing amazing things in life. And I thought, well, I want to build a group of men who can come together and lift each other up. That's why I call it Men of Abundance, the Pay It Forward community.
Very cool. Very cool. And you've got almost 50 episodes now, correct?
Correct. Number 50 will post tomorrow.
Nice.
Was it? Yeah, tomorrow.
And I imagine you, like me, probably have a bunch of them in the can too.
I do indeed. Actually, I have, like 10 of them that I haven't even edited yet. So it's good to be in that position as opposed to when I first got started. Yes.
When I first started the Veteran Resource Podcast, I knew that I wanted to talk to veteran nonprofit organizations so that I could find out, what they were doing for veterans and let veterans know here's what you have, here's what's available to you. And making those first few connections and talking with some of the ones that I was already familiar with, I was already friends with some of these people. It was easy. It was like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? Sure, no problem. Once I got through those and I had to reach out to people I didn't know, there was that, slight bit of fear factor going on where it's like, are these people going to respond? Are they going to want to be on the podcast? And to this day, almost every single person that I have asked to be on the show has accepted and come on the show.
Yeah, I have exactly the same experience, without a doubt. And it's funny because the people that I want to get on the show are the people that are just starting their business. And a lot of those folks they're the hardest ones to get on the show. So somebody like Jay Papasan, who works directly with Gary Keller, and I don't know if you know the whole background, but he was one of we mentioned earlier, like the whale, one of those guys I want to get on the show. They're easier to get on the show, quite frankly, than it is some of these people just starting out. And I think it's because of their mindset. I think they're just not right. They have maybe imposter syndrome, or they don't want to sell. They have a business, but ironically enough, they don't want to sell. And I almost have to talk them into coming on the show because I want to lift them up. And, I haven't quite cracked that code yet, but I'm certainly going to. So I think if I get them into the community and show them what we're doing, and then support them, because a lot of people I think are jaded and they think somebody's trying to take something from them. So right. I really want to get people out of that scarcity mindset and into the abundance mindset.
And let's talk about that right now. What does it mean to lead a life of abundance?
Well, it really depends where you're at in life, and it depends on, for me anyway, this is my answer. It depends on where you're at in life, and it depends on, what you want out of life and what kind of what category you're talking in. But in general, living a life of abundance to me is basically doing what you want to do and living the lifestyle that you want to live while you're giving back to the community. You're paying it forward in tithing, time, talents, and treasures. And I said quite a bit there. There's quite a lot going on right there. But the bottom line is this. If you have an amazing job, because everybody says, well, in order to be free, you have to have your own business and all this kind of stuff. And while I do agree with that to a certain extent, because a job, as long as you're working for somebody else, you're always at risk for being laid off, something going on with the company, the economy. All of these things affect your job. The other thing that I talk about with people with a job is that as far as the group of taxpayers, when you earn the adage that people say all the time, the more you earn, the more they take, is absolutely correct in a job. That's not true in a business. And while we're on that subject as far as taxes, the group of taxpayers that have the most benefits in tax codes is home business owners. So I always tell people to start their own side hustle, regardless of what it is, some sort of side hustle while you have your job. But ultimately, living a life of abundance is just that, doing what you want to do in life and paying it forward to your community. And then, of course, the other part that I want to talk about in that is the abundance mindset. So many people, like I just mentioned, some of these these people starting their own business and stuff, they're starting with a scarcity mindset, thinking somebody's going to take something from me if I share what I'm doing. And the opposite is true, in my experience, is that the more you talk to people about what you're doing, the more people are going to come out of the woodworks, are going to say, or going to have somebody like me, I'm a connector. So if you tell me you're wanting to start, whatever business, whatever it is, and I say, you know what, I got somebody you need to talk to. I know somebody who is basically in the same niche that you have, and they might be able to help you over this, this particular issue that you're having right now. And if you're not talking about what you're doing and sharing your story, then those type of opportunities are never going to come up. There is so much abundance in the world. In fact, one book I want to recommend, and we might get into this later, but one book I want to recommend that really is the preface of my whole thought process is a book called Abundance by Peter Diamandis. And I would suggest getting it on audio because there's a lot of facts and figures in there. This book was like 10 years in the making. And it shows just how much abundance there is in the world. And the more we watch the news, the more we watch the media, especially with stuff that's going on today, they want us to believe that we have limited resources and there's little to go around. So you better get what you want to get. And the other thing that the media wants us to believe, and this isn't just like news, this is also in the movies and in TV shows and all this stuff, is that the 2% or whatever it is of the people that have all the wealth in the world have all the wealth and nobody else can get any. And it's simply not true.
Right.
The fact of the matter is they got where they're at because they worked their butts off. The average CEO, for instance, reads 60 books a year, attends 7 to 12 conferences that cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000 each. The average person that is complaining about all of these people having all this money don't read a book after high school. Don't listen to a podcast. Don't listen to, don't take a course that can make themselves more valuable in the workplace. So this is the type of stuff that I'm trying to get across to people, that there is more than enough to go around. You just have to do your part to get it.
Well, this is absolutely incredible. This is great information. And what I see here is an opportunity for the veteran organizations to pay attention to what you're saying here too, because there are a lot of organizations out there that they feel like, we're helping veterans in this certain way. And so, we're going to try to just bring everybody under our bubble and try to help them. But they don't collaborate with other veteran organizations, and they don't bring in others. That they just try to do it all themselves. And I think that whole scarcity mindset, they feel like, if somebody is donating money to this other organization, then that's money that they're not donating to us. So we just lost money by doing that. Or if we do a project and we collaborate with another organization, well, now they're going to get half of the money, that we could be using for our programs. But it's like you said, the opposite is absolutely true. I've seen time and time again these organizations that collaborate with other organizations, and they're able to grow so quickly And they're able to get sponsors that are going after these huge programs that they have going on, because now it's not just this little one that's going to help, this small amount of veterans through this one specific way. They're able to say, okay, we've collaborated with these other 4 organizations, and we've come together to make this huge annual event that we're going to be doing, and we're going to be helping all of these different veterans in all of these different ways, and sponsors jump all over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me point something else out, and that's a very good point that you just mentioned right there. But the other part that I want to mention to that is, what is your ultimate goal? What is your mission? Is your mission to grow your organization, or is your mission to help veterans?
Right.
So if you're worried about another organization that's doing amazing things for veterans, they're doing something similar to you but slightly different, then, like you said, if you collaborate and come together, who knows what might happen? Maybe you'll become one organization, or maybe, who knows? But ultimately, the end result is occurring, and that is you're helping veterans.
Exactly. Absolutely correct. You mentioned, you kind of briefed over your white whale earlier, and you talked about, already getting a couple of those on your show. But I'm curious, is there somebody out there that is your white whale, your dream guest right now that you'd like to have on the show?
When I first started the podcast, one of the first names that went to the top of my list, because he's a guy that I've followed for many years and still alive. And I say that because, Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and all the greats, these guys that are just amazing speakers and amazing people, very abundant leaders in my mind. But the one that's at the top of my list is Les Brown. And as it stands right now, I'm one person removed from him. And that guy, I'm getting ready to get on the show. He calls himself the Big Dreamer. The other guy that I'm working on right now that I've actually been talking with is Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone has a series of books out there, and he's got an amazing story, similar to mine, quite frankly, as his upbringing from a young man. But he's written a book called The 10X Rule. He wrote a book called If You're Not First, I think it's If You're Not First, You're Last. I haven't read that one yet. But his latest book is called Be Obsessed or Be Average. And he is just an amazing individual. He's got most of his wealth in real estate and sales. And so he's definitely one that, and I've already been talking with his assistant to get him on that, early 2017, but I'm obsessed. And I'm obsessed because I read his book, and I'm obsessed to get him on the show before then, just because I want to have a conversation with this guy.
Yeah, definitely a good leader there. And I'm definitely going to have to check out this new book.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And he wrote Be Obsessed or Be Average as an answer to the 10X rule, and he explains this in the book, because the 10X rule, people were 10Xing, but they couldn't figure out why they weren't getting the results. And then Grant realized that the reason why he got his results is, quite frankly, because he's obsessed. And this is the reason why I want to have him on the show. As an abundant leader, so many people, like, it's kind of contradictory to the one thing, but I was obsessed about the one thing. And I realized this after reading the book. But in the book, Be Obsessed or Be Average, he's talking about your obsessions, not just being obsessed about one thing. So if you're obsessed about one thing, like, say, for instance, you're obsessed about your vocation, or you're obsessed about your business, then other things are going to fall to the wayside. And they talk about that in the one thing as well. You can only leave something like your relationships and with your family and your spouse, you can only neglect that for a very short period of time, because you can damage that. And so Grant talks about being obsessed about many obsessions, about your family life, be obsessed about your community, and be obsessed about your church, and be obsessed about your income, and be obsessed about your business, or whatever it is. But you can't be obsessed on one thing alone. We have many obsessions. We have many reasons why we want to do certain things, many reasons why we want a better income, many reasons why we want more time. So it's an amazing book, and I've already listened to it twice, and now I'm reading it.
Very cool. Very cool. And that reminds me, Emily Wapnick, she runs a community called Putty Like, And what she refers to, exactly what you were just talking about, is multi-potentialite, somebody who runs in a bunch of different directions, who has a bunch of different passions, and successfully follows them instead of just going in one direction and putting everything in that one direction. And she's got a great TED Talk out there. Just look for Emily Wapnick. I think it's Wapnick. And you should be able to find that TED Talk there. And if I locate it, I'll throw it in the show notes.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, because I definitely want to take a look at that. And the other guy I was talking about that I'm one person removed from Les Brown is Greg Walker. If you get a chance, look up his name. Look up that guy. Amazing. Just simply an amazing background.
Very cool. So let me ask you, how can veterans specifically, the listeners right now that are hearing your voice, how can they start moving more away from a life of scarcity and more into a life of abundance?
Number one, first and foremost, is look around you and realize what you have right now. Realize who is in your life right now that is there supporting you. First and foremost, that is the most important thing that any of us need, is that support. If for whatever reason, and I just want to throw this in there because most people do have more people around them than they think based on where they're at in life. But if for whatever reason you look around you and feel you do not have the support that you need right now, then connect with a community. Connect with Jeremy. Connect with myself. Connect with Men of Abundance. Find a community, even if it's a community within your community, right in your location. Find a group of people that you can resonate with that are doing great things, not a group of people that are out, partying all the time and this type of stuff, because you are you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Absolutely.
And that's a fact. There's no doubt about it. So if you're looking around and you're seeing that your 5 are the same people you've hung around with for 5, 10, 20 years, and they're great people to hang around, but they're just not doing anything for you, you need to upgrade your 5. So just consider that. Then after, once you realize what you have, be happy with that. Be excited about that. Just be happy with what you have. It sounds kind of wishy-washy. It sounds kind of, I don't know. To me anyway, it always, yeah, there you go. That's the word I'm looking for. That's a word. It sounds woo-woo. But it's truly the essence of life. I truly believe that happiness doesn't come before success. Success is a result of happiness. And once you get in that happy place, there's another woo-woo term. It really is. But the fact of the matter is once you start being excited about who you are, the people that you have around you, all the skills that you have. Listen, veterans, I'm telling you right now, we undersell ourselves. We have so many skills. I don't care if you're infantry, scout. I've worked with them all. I've worked with special ops. I've worked with engineers. I've built brick walls. I've built schools in Panama, Central America. I've worked with all kinds of people in the military in all branches, including the Coast Guard. And we have amazing, amazing skills. You learn if you've been, and that's just from the military, not to mention from your civilian life. So think about what you have. Get in amazing communities that will help you enhance what skills you currently have, and then start picking up some books. Pick up some books, and I'm telling you, I'm not much of a reader. I like to read, but I'm always in my vehicle, so audiobooks are the way to go. Audiobooks, podcasts, there are 300, last count I know of it, roughly 300,000 podcasts out there.
Wow.
You're going to find one that resonates with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And always never stop listening to Veteran Resources Podcast. I am blown away every time a new episode pops up, back when you were just one episode a week. And I'm blown away with the amount of resources that are out there for veterans. Never stop listening to that, because you're going to meet somebody, and I truly feel like I know these people when I'm listening to these shows. You're going to meet somebody who has something for you. And pick up the phone, give them a call. Don't be afraid to call anybody. Trust me, these people want to help, no matter how big they are. it seems like the bigger they are, they really do want to help. Some of them just don't have the time right away, but you got to get these guys. So
Yeah.
just to kind of close up what I said right there is, be happy, look around, realize the support you have, be happy with who you are, decide what you want to do in life. And it's got to be more than just serving you. The way I see it is success is your personal success. That's going to be something for you. Significance is when you're starting to make a difference in your community and, something that's going to kind of carry on, that's going to help other people. And then greatness is where you're just really helping a larger community outside of your small community. You're helping the United States, you're helping the world, something that's going to stick around for a very long time. Your grandkids are going to know who you are because of that you did in the mind of greatness. And none of it can be done without an abundance mindset.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Wally. Let me ask you, jumping into your community, because you mentioned that a couple of times, how do people get there? How do people find you and your community?
Well, two ways that I'll mention. One, go to menofabundance.com. That's where most of, all of my podcasts are hanging. I've got a blog there as well. And I'm getting in the process right now of, I do video blogs. So when I do my Facebook live videos, they automatically post to my blog at menofabundance.com/blog. That's one way. Other than that, on Facebook, go to Facebook and type Men of Abundance. Now, right now I have it's a free community, and I'm in the process of building what's eventually going to be a paid community. I'm kind of playing with that a little bit. It's going to be the Men of Abundance Society, but there's 2 pages out there. I've got my fan page for Men of Abundance, and then I've got the closed group for Men of Abundance Community. So if you search either of those, you request access, I'll give you access. Now, I will say this. There have been a couple guys who have tried to get access to that community. I have right up there in the front page for you to read, and there's no spamming. It's no business talk in there. We're not promoting anything in there. None of that kind of stuff. That's where I post the podcast episodes. But other than that, we dialogue about that particular episode. And really, I'm kind of getting this rolling. There's not a whole lot of activity right now, but I do want to get more activity in there. But like I was saying, there's certain guys I just don't let in there because I see them, what they're doing on social media, and they're not coming in there for the right reason.
Right. If you're in a group and you're in there just to try to promote yourself, then it's going to show. It's going to be really apparent, and you're probably going to get booted from that group in no time. And I'm in a couple of veteran groups for like a group for PTSD and a couple other groups. And I don't go in there and post every single one of my podcast episodes saying, hey, go to this. Hey, check this out. Me. I'll go into that group and I'll try to provide value in that group. Now, if I have an episode that specifically deals with PTSD, then I might share that episode and say, please listen to this episode and hopefully this will be something that can help you. Like I had one recently that I posted up there, but it might be once a month at the most that I'm doing that. It's just very specific to that group.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up great points. And of course, if, whoever the manager is of that group, you got to have that kind of communication with them and understand where you're coming from. I truly believe that when you're posting that stuff in that particular group, like PTSD, and then you're posting one of your podcast episodes, it's not self-serving. You're doing this whole thing to begin with to help veterans. So
right.
That wouldn't be an issue at all.
Right. Well, Wally, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And once again, the website where people can find you?
menofabundance.com.
menofabundance.com. Don't feel like you're cheating on me if you go and check out Wally's podcast. I advise you to go and check out his podcast. It is really good. Subscribe to it so that you know when new episodes are coming in. They'll just be waiting for you, and you could just go into your podcast player and check them out on demand when you have the time, when you're driving in your car or you're running or something like that.
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that, Jeremy. And you bring up another good point, and this is just proves the abundant leader that you are. And I get asked quite often, they're like, Wally, why do you suggest people go to other podcasts that are similar to yours? Because, dude, some people may not like me. I mean, I'm okay with that. Or they just don't resonate with me, or they just resonate with the other guy or the other group or whatever, the other information more than they do with me. As long as people are getting the information that they need, I could care less where they get it from, man.
And the other thing too is that, I mean, you don't know anybody else's situation. There was a time in my life a few years ago that I was commuting 2 hours every single day to work. And during that time, I mean, I was a huge fan and still am a huge fan of John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. And he put out an episode every single day. But that one episode wasn't enough for me to listen to and then have, my whole commute covered. I needed to fill it with Internet Business Mastery and Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn and The Mentee and all of these other podcasts that I would just have lined up waiting for me. So, you don't need to just listen to one podcast. There's lots of them out there.
You know what? And speaking of this, I got to say one more thing, Jeremy, before we jump off right here. And this is not blowing smoke at all. Ever since I first heard your podcast, you have been on my list. And I'm finally getting you on the show. So I'm excited about that. And honestly, I just heard when your episode that you just posted, I heard your backstory.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't I get this dude on the show? I did not know that, man. I was blown away yesterday when I was listening to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And for those people out there who do know me, you know that I've got quite a lot of backstory, but I share bits and pieces here and there.
I do too. I do the same thing. I couldn't pause. Goodness, we'd be here forever.
Right. Well, thanks again, Wally. You've shared a lot of really good points for the listeners to really move towards that life of abundance. And I hope that a lot of you have gotten something out of this. And please go and get connected with the community and jump into Wally's community. Start talking. Just say hi and let the conversation go from there.
Excellent advice. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you having me on, Jeremy.
All right, Wally, you have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As always, make sure you go to the show notes. veteranresourcepodcast.com/075 will get you there, and you can find all of the information and links to get connected with Men of Abundance and Wally. And also, during the podcast, Wally mentioned a book by Grant Cardone called Be Obsessed or Be Average. And since then, I took his advice and I jumped on Audible and I got the book. I've been listening to it. I'm about 3/4 of the way done with it now, and I'm really, really enjoying it. So I went ahead and I put a link to that book in the show notes as well, so you can check that out. Thank you again for listening, and I hope that you all have a great Thanksgiving. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you next week for episode 76.